Welcome to the top 50 best UFO photos of all time. In today's show, we are deep diving into the most intriguing, authentic, and iconic images that have left millions questioning, are we truly alone?
Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we're doing something rather special, and we're going to look at the top 50 UFO photos of all time, using only photos that have officially been studied by just about every expert on Earth and have not been debunked as far as I know. Now, I took a lot of these photographs from newspapers around about the years of 2005, 2006, so it was well before AI was around. So all the photographs we're going to show are genuine photographs, okay? I'm not going to try and debunk any of these photographs. It's just my personal observation, my take on seeing some of them for the very first time. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below too. Let me know, all right? Now, one thing I haven't done here is upscale any of the photographs with AI to make them more clearer, because we know for a fact that AI gives us its interpretation of what it thinks it is, and we don't want that. So what I've done, I've just zoomed in on the original photograph to see if we can see something that we can't see in the original size. Now, we're not counting down as such, but we are going through the ages from grainy shots way back in the 1900s to up to 2000. They were a bit more clearer, put it that way. This is where the unexplained definitely meets the undeniable. Before we begin, though, I want to give you a couple of honorable mentions to photos that didn't make the top 50, which, however, go to prove that UFOs have been around a lot longer than people think. Have a look. The first honorable mention is this one from 1870, with what is often claimed to be the earliest picture of a UFO. Yes, they had cameras back then, and this was taken from the summit of Mount Washington, New Hampshire in 1870. Looks more like a stick of wood to me. And this is taken from the top of a mountain looking down, and taking a closer look, I'm sorry, but looks nothing like any UFO I've ever seen. Rather looks like a long log. Now, if the witness said it was moving, that's a different story. The problem is, I don't know the backstory to any of these pictures we're going to show you. One of the earliest photographs of an unidentified flying object, this picture was taken somewhere in the United States during the 1920s. Nice picture of a farmer. And zooming in, it's difficult to see anything really. No defining lines. Bit of a blip, that one. But does have a smaller spot behind it, which may be another UFO or just something on the picture frame. Okay, let's officially get into our top 50, and in part 1 of our top 50 UFO photos of all time, we look at the photos from 1929 to 1975. And here we have an object which hovers over a sawmill in Ward, Colorado in April 1929. I don't really know what to make of this. A pretty weird image, this one. Now, I recognize this picture as we've done a feature on the show about it. The photo is from the Battle of Los Angeles from February 25th, 1942. The bright blobs around the flashes are actually anti-aircraft shells exploding, and we've done a feature on this and still couldn't really see a UFO in the picture. They say it was a weather balloon. Well, if it was, they blasted it to pieces, but not one bit of wreckage fell on the ground. So humbug on this one. Right, this one's called a Japanese Sally bomber, which flies over the Japanese Sea in 1943, followed by a dark sphere. You know, I love a good orb. But this one doesn't really offer much in the way of a wow factor. No lights, no glowing body, just a black hairy ball in the picture. Very so-so. On July 19th, 1952, Customs Inspector Domingo Troncoso took this picture on the jungle frontier between Peru and Bolivia. The big dirigible-shaped craft was flying horizontally and fairly low in the sky, passing from right to left from the observer's position. It's a pretty interesting photograph. Now, extraterrestrial aircraft normally don't leave smoke trails, unless of course they're about to crash, and this one is flying rather low. I'd love to hear the witness testimony of this sighting, but it's in Peru, and they probably laughed him out of town at the time. This cylindrical appearing UFO was photographed over New York City on March 20th, 1950. A photo collection would not be complete without a strange looking tube-shaped UFO. The maker gets a 1 out of 10 for design skills here. Washington, D.C., 1952, and some UFOs were photographed flying over the Capitol building during a wave of sightings above the city. I've seen a few over Washington UFO photos, but not craft with two lights like this one. Pretty interesting. An amateur photograph of a UFO taken over Pastoria, New Jersey in July 1952. Here's your classic flat-bottom UFO. The designers went to town on this craft, the Datsun of the flying saucer world. In September 1957, this picture was taken by a test pilot near Edwards Air Force Base in California. It shows a UFO apparently following a B-47 jet. If the last photo was the Datsun of the flying saucer world, this is the Cadillac. Haven't seen one shaped like this in modern times. Straight out of the Jetsons, this one. In this picture by Trevor Constable taken on May 17, 1958 at Giant Rock, California, the object above the ridge was not seen by witnesses at the time, but only became apparent after the film was developed. These days we do see a lot of future tech aircraft with central power systems, so this one kind of makes sense. This shot was taken on January the 16th, 1958 over Trindade Island, Brazil. At the time it was widely dismissed as a hoax, although doubts have now been expressed at this conclusion. Something made them change their mind. Because of the age of the photograph, it's another grainy, hairy image, but at least this one is back to the classic flying saucer shape. This one was taken on July 3, 1960 by Argentinian Air Force Captain Hugo Niotti near Cordoba, Argentina. I'm going for the long tubular shape on this one. What do you think? Not exactly a tic-tac shape, but not a bad effort. This picture was taken somewhere in the United States on June 10, 1964 and was discovered in an attic some years later. Okay, I've seen this shape before with the three domes underneath. Georgia Damsky, I'm guessing. And also it's very similar to the German Hanabu flying disc. Sid will tell us more about this in his roundup at the end of the show. Rex Heflin, an Orange County highway inspector, was at work in a county vehicle on August 3, 1965 when he saw a hat-shaped object hovering above the road. He grabbed his Polaroid camera and took 3 photographs of the metallic appearing object. I've seen this shape before too. It's an absolute classic of a UFO photo. I affectionately call this the flat hat model. Alan Smith, age 14, took this photograph at about 1:45 a.m. on August 2, 1965 from his backyard in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 5 other witnesses saw the UFO change color from white to red to blue to green. It's another odd one. It looks like it's got 2 fins at the back, but it's nothing like I've ever seen before. It sort of reminds me of a color changing game from back in the 70s. This curious bell-shaped object was photographed by a businessman from his garden in the Melbourne suburb of Baldwin. The UFO was sighted on April 2, 1966, and the picture was taken around 2 p.m. with a Polaroid camera. Very popular cameras at the time. Remember the gimbal UFO the media rams down your throat? A flying saucer on its side? Looks very familiar, yeah? This picture was taken by Joe Ferreira on July 3, 1967 in Cumberland, Rhode Island, New York. It shows a large cigar-shaped object which he estimated to be 700 foot in length, and towards the bottom right of the picture a smaller disc. They certainly come in all shapes and sizes. This one is doing a one-upsie on the Tic Tac design and then some, plus a saucer-shaped craft as an escort. This unattributed photograph was taken on June 10, 1967 at Moonstucket, Rhode Island. Very popular place for UFOs, that. Back to the classics with this one, with that central power system under its belly. Rhode Island does seem to be a UFO hotspot. Here's an unattributed photograph taken from a plane over Venezuela on February the 13th, 1968. We are definitely looking at this from the top. What do you reckon? Taken in Japan sometime during 1970, this one has been to the Honda custom shop and had all the upgrades. Flash bugger. Lots of interesting features on this one. This strange glowing object was photographed during the 1970s over Bremerton, Washington. This one is an absolute showstopper. This photo reminds me of the clip we had on the channel called The Ships of Light with eyewitness Carlos Diaz in Mexico. It's an amazing abduction case and has some pretty amazing video footage too. It's well worth checking out. This is one of 2 photographs snapped by a family who were taking pictures of their new home in North Corsica in February 1971 when this object appeared. My UFO is shinier than yours. What a classic UFO picture. I love it. A Mr. Lawson was walking his dog in Viborg, Jutland, Denmark in the early morning hours of November 17, 1974, when he saw a strange-looking object shrouded in a white cloud. He took this photograph as the object was 250 to 300 meters away. You want a jellyfish UFO? You got one. Looks more like an unusual cloud formation to me, but it's an interesting picture nevertheless. This one was photographed by an anonymous French doctor on March 23, 1974 in Tavernes-Var, doing a major UFO flap over France. Here's another pretty amazing photograph. Remember, all the photos we are showing have not been debunked. What are those white beams all about? It looks like something you'd milk a cow with. An anonymous witness near Hamilton on Lake Ontario photographed this object as it approached him in March 1974. The object appeared to be a dark color and was very similar to the one seen hovering over Centino, Argentina 2 years later. No guesses as to where the aliens are sitting in this one. It's got a bit of a submarine vibe about it. Taken by an unknown photographer on March 18, 1975 in Switzerland. I must admit this one looks a bit like the latest grey-colored Brazilian UFO we debunked as a balloon, but this one has a little more menace to it. So that's our first 25 photographs. Hope you enjoyed them. The next 25 will be in part 2 of the show. But before we go, we're going to have a little bit of a summary and a few observations from our ufology bot, Sid, and see what I may have missed. Sid, what have you got for us?
This picture may have been found in someone's attic years later, but it was taken by George Adamski in 1964, a year before he died. Adamski claimed to have been taken aboard an alien spacecraft, met with friendly Nordic aliens, and taken flights with them to the moon and other planets. Although most UFO researchers and investigators regarded him as a charlatan and a con artist and concluded that his many claims were an elaborate hoax, in 2012, UFO researcher Joel Carpenter identified the reflector shade of a widely available 1930s pressurized gas lantern as an identical visual match to the main portion of Adamski's flying saucer photo. The jury is still out on George Adamski. Although this pic is from 1965, this UFO is of a very similar shape to the Zanesville, Ohio UFO from February 13th, 1967. The two fins remind me of the flying sub from the TV series Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. The color-changing game you refer to is called Simon. It's an electronic game of short-term memory skill from 1978. This sighting is from 1965. The gimbal UFO from 2015 did angle itself to fly, so it's not unusual. Perhaps a reason why Rhode Island attracts so many UFOs is it has a research nuclear reactor at the Rhode Island Nuclear Science Center. The reactor is used for research in engineering, medicine, physics, biology, and atmospheric chemistry. The reactor is small and limited in size. The reactor was built in the 1960s to test materials' vulnerability to radiation. However, it went critical in 1964. Since then, it has attracted many UFOs to that area.
Thanks, Sid. Good stuff. Please join us in part 2 of our top 50 UFO photos of all time, when we look at UFO photos from 1976 to 2005. We'll see you on the other side.